Hey everyone, so in this ActiveCampaign tutorial, we're going to be setting up ActiveCampaign, testing out all the different features from marketing automation to campaigns, conversations, landing pages, the whole shebang. Before we jump into ActiveCampaign.com though, I think it's worth kind of explaining a bit of context for how we have gone about doing these reviews. So since 2012, we've conducted an annual review of all the different email marketing software available on the market. We look at well over 100 different tools, comparing everything from their pricing to the different features they offer. And most importantly, we spend a lot of time surveying email marketers, trying to understand which email marketing tools are they using, what are they moving away from, what are they moving to, what do they like, what do they dislike about their tools. And we're really trying to understand the email marketing landscape as a whole, the migration patterns, and ultimately, what are the best email marketing tools out there. So we first reviewed ActiveCampaign way back in 2012. And since about 2016, 2017, ActiveCampaign have scored the highest out of all the email marketing tools that we've looked at. And I think there are three particular reasons why ActiveCampaign scores very, very, very well. And they're very interconnected. So the first one is that ActiveCampaign is so feature rich. Whether you're a beginner email marketer or advanced, there's really no glass ceiling when it comes to using ActiveCampaign. We've used ActiveCampaign ourselves across, I think, 6 or 7 different ventures in our portfolio, from Mac apps to comparison sites. And whatever we throw at ActiveCampaign, it can handle it. We never sort of reach a stage where we're missing features that we desperately need. And with a lot of the other email marketing tools that we've tested and we've looked at, it's not that they're sort of not feature rich. It's just that there are certain kind of things where, like split testing, for example, where they just don't do it particularly well, and that would limit our ability to kind of get results from email marketing. So I feel with ActiveCampaign, you get a sense, even just from looking at their website, that this is a platform that offers a lot of features, goes into a lot of depth. We have everything from kind of predictive machine learning based features, lead scoring, lots of kind of CRM and sales based features, dynamic content. As I say, even if you're kind of, you're not at a point where you're ready to use these features, the fact that ActiveCampaign offers them will genuinely make a really big difference. The second pro of using ActiveCampaign, which is particularly impressive given that first point, is that ActiveCampaign is incredibly easy to use. There's a bit of debate in the email marketing space as to whether it was ActiveCampaign or Drip who first pioneered visual marketing automation. It doesn't really matter, but ActiveCampaign were definitely one of the first, if not the first, to create this really kind of simple, intuitive, visual way of building automation sequences. I've invited many team members onto ActiveCampaign in their first week joining the company, and with no training, with no onboarding, they've been able to create really kind of powerful automation sequences. So it really is quite easy to use. You don't need to go through training really to figure out how to use it. Very intuitive. And that brings me on to the third pro of ActiveCampaign, which again is very impressive, particularly given that first and second point, which is that their pricing is really affordable. Given the huge kind of range of features that they offer, it's not so much that ActiveCampaign is the cheapest tool out there. It's definitely not the cheapest. It starts from $9 a month, so it's absolutely not bad at all. But from a value perspective, what you get for your money with ActiveCampaign is phenomenal. The only other tool that I would say is on par with ActiveCampaign from a feature perspective is HubSpot. And HubSpot, at almost any given level of contacts, you're going to be paying 10 to 20 times as much. So given, as I say, what you're paying and what you're getting back from that, from a value perspective, I think ActiveCampaign is really quite reasonable and very affordable, regardless of the size. And I think it's those three things in combination that when we speak to ActiveCampaign users, I think we found 78% of ActiveCampaign users that have been using ActiveCampaign for at least a year would highly, highly recommend it. And I think it's because that combination of they're able to get a lot out of it, it's very easy to use, very intuitive, and it's not breaking the bank. So with all that said, we're going to jump into the platform in a moment. I will touch briefly on the cons. There aren't many cons of ActiveCampaign. There are only two in particular that I think are worth mentioning. One is that the reporting is not fantastic. It's not bad, but it's not incredible. And the other thing that is not great about ActiveCampaign, again, it's not terrible, but it's just not brilliant, is the CRM. So we're going to jump into both of those a little bit later so you can kind of see firsthand what they look like. But as I say, I'm clutching at straws. Generally speaking, most things in ActiveCampaign are done exceptionally well. So with that, we're now going to jump into the ActiveCampaign platform. So signing up with ActiveCampaign is really nice and easy. I'm going to save us all a few minutes and jump straight in. But essentially, you get asked a few bits of information, and most crucially, you do not have to enter a credit card. So at no point creating this new account did I have to enter any card details. So when you first log into ActiveCampaign, you get taken straight to the dashboard, which looks like this. As you can see, the first time you jump in, there's lots of options for how to get set up. In the future, when you log back into ActiveCampaign, this will get replaced by various reports and various information on what your subscribers are doing. But this first view is kind of nice and straightforward. So in this review, I'm going to work pretty much down this left-hand panel in order. So we're going to start by looking at contacts. I'm going to mark up this video with chapters. So if you want to kind of see a particular area of ActiveCampaign, you can look in the description and jump or sort of jump to any point to see that section. But to start off, we're going to look at importing contacts and building a list. So first thing I'm going to do is create a new list in ActiveCampaign, just to kind of show how simple this is. So up here, we can click add a list. I'm going to create a list of prospects, and that's pretty much all there is to it. So lists are generally pretty helpful for segmenting your contacts into different lists. There's no right or wrong way as to how you do this. You might have prospects, leads, customers, for example. You might have them for different products. There's sort of no right or wrong way. But over here, you can see we've got a button to import contacts, and we've got lots of different options for how we can bring our contacts into ActiveCampaign. I will kind of point out that ActiveCampaign are one of the very few tools that offer a free migration service. So if you're moving to ActiveCampaign from a different email marketing platform, a different CRM, ActiveCampaign will help you migrate free of charge. A lot of other tools offer this as a paid service, so that's quite a nice little thing that ActiveCampaign do for free. So I'm just going to import a CSV that I made earlier, which has 20 contacts in. And what you can see is that ActiveCampaign have automatically mapped some of these columns for us. I've created one for company name, and a nice little touch that ActiveCampaign have done, which not many other tools do, surprisingly, is they can pass both the first and last name in one column. So in my spreadsheet, just to kind of try and test the tools a little bit more, I had the full name in a column, and most of the tools that we've tested have meant I've had to go back to my spreadsheet and break that out into a first name and a last name, two separate columns, whereas ActiveCampaign can manage it in one. Small thing, but makes a nice difference. So we've got a few options here. I'm not going to sort of dwell too much on that. I'm just going to run the import, and if this goes well, we should see that 20 contacts have been imported into the prospect list. So just takes a second or two. What I'll do is, let's give it a few seconds. There we go, that's completed. So now if I go to my list, we should see 20 contacts. There we go. So I can click on this list and I should see all of my contacts that have been imported. Yep. And a few things to point out here. So it took me a while to discover this, but there's a little cog over on the right here, which you can use to customize the columns. This gets particularly helpful when you add your own fields. So we'll come back to that a bit later. And then if you click into any contact, you can see all the information about that particular person. So here we can see at the moment it's a bit blank. There's not too much going on. But if If we have tags, if this user gets entered into different automations, if you're using the ActiveCampaign CRM, you can see all the information about the deal that's associated with this user. And another little touch that I really like about ActiveCampaign is over on this right-hand panel, you can see all the actions that this user took in any of your automations. You can see, yesterday this user opened this email, they clicked on the link, and then 2 hours later they unsubscribed. So you can see all of that information, the whole kind of history of any given person that you have on your list, which is nice. So moving down the list here, so accounts, this is just the companies that I imported earlier. Tags, I say this is quite a nice feature for be able to kind of segment your list and sort of understand what actions users have taken. Again, there's not really any right or wrong way in terms of how you manage tags. We often use tags to sort of mark like particular events people have done. So it might be things like downloads ebook. Equally, you could do things based on information about the user. So you could do, for example, like a tag could be based on like their industry or anything you think of really. Yeah, so you can add tags and then apply those to users. My one bit of advice with tags is try and keep this list clean and try and sort of agree with your team on a sort of like, agreed method of how you're going to use tags. Because there is a bit of a risk with tags that if different people sort of use it in different ways, it can get quite messy quite quickly. So you just want to kind of agree on how to do that. Fields, so fields, as you can see, we've got some like pre-made fields here. You can add your own, so you could add something, for example, like what I mentioned earlier about industry, that's probably better set as a field rather than a tag because it can have a lot of different values. So we can sort of add that there. You can create groups if you want to. I think for one of the accounts that we use ActiveCampaign with, we've got something like 100 different fields. So you may want to then group your fields into like, conversion data or company data, just to kind of make this nice and clean. So next, we're going to look at lead scoring rules. So I've actually created one earlier. I'll actually just create a new one just to keep it nice and clean. So for scoring, you can create either a deal score or a contact score. This will sort of depend on how you're using contacts and deals. So I'm just going to call this score qualification score. So scoring is essentially applying a number to contacts or deals to help you understand which leads you might want to focus on or which ones are qualified, not qualified. So how this works is you can add a series of rules that, when true, will add a certain number of points to a user. So we could say, for example, every time someone opens an email, we want to give that contact, let's assign them 5 points. And perhaps if they visit our pricing page, so if it contains pricing, maybe we consider that that's quite a strong indication that this user is qualified. So we're going to add 10 points. And you can then, within your automation sequences, you can create these rules that sort of say, okay, when a user or a deal gets to 25 points, we want to move them into a different list, or we want to trigger a notification to our sales team to say this contact is now ready to be, pick up the phone, that they seem like they're quite qualified. You can also subtract points, but you get the gist that the scoring is kind of all about giving you a sort of a dynamic way of knowing how qualified or not qualified a given contact is. So really helpful feature. And also really nice way of automatically moving your contacts to different lists based on their activity. So I'm going to skip over list exclusions. That's just kind of a list cleaning tool. Database sync, again, it's sort of what it says on the tin. Yeah, similarly exports. So these 3 features, list exclusions, database sync, and exports, pretty helpful from a GDPR compliance and also kind of other compliance criteria like HIPAA or I forget the Californian the CCPA, I think it's called. But a lot of these new kind of data protection laws require these features. So just to say, ActiveCampaign are very much ahead of the curve when it comes to that side of things. And I'm going to, for now, skip over reports because we'll cover reports in a bit more detail at a later stage as we kind of work our way down. So I'll leave it there now for context, and we'll skip over to creating our first campaign. So we'll start here by creating our first campaign, and just a few things to sort of note here. We'll create an automated campaign later when we look at marketing automation, but noteworthy to kind of just pick up on these three options at the bottom here. So we can create various different types of campaigns. Split testing campaigns, really helpful. RSS triggered. So if you're running a blog and you want to automatically email your contacts whenever you publish a new piece of content, again, really helpful. And then we've also got date-based. So these are relatively standard, but as we've seen in some of the other email marketing tests we've looked at, not all of them offer split testing and RSS. So if those two are useful, that's worth knowing. So here we'll select our list. We do have the option to segment our list. So if you only wanted to send this campaign, for example, to people who have signed up to your list in the last, maybe last 7 days or since this date, we can add that segmentation. For now, we're just going to skip over and go on to look at some of the templates. So ActiveCampaign gives you 3 different options in terms of how you want to design your emails. So we have text only. If you're just sending plain text emails, we have custom HTML. We also have the kind of visual email designer. I personally quite like jumping between the 3 options, but it obviously depends on kind of what you're most comfortable with. For this video, I'm going to start with the email designer, and then I'll kind of show you the HTML editor once we've got something together. So ActiveCampaign offer a ton of different templates, and what I really like is you've got options for these kind of basic, just layout-based ones. So if you're quite comfortable from a design perspective, the layout templates are really helpful because it means you don't have to worry about columns and sort of building the structure. If you want to kind of get up and going a bit quicker and maybe don't have sort of design support, the design templates are really nice. I'm really impressed by ActiveCampaign. Yeah, we've got really nice templates. You can preview them, see kind of how they look on both mobile and desktop. But they've done a really good job, I think, ActiveCampaign, of making these actually quite usable and pretty sort of visually nice. The other option that you have is you can build your own templates. So either yourself or your designer, your development team can build templates, and then you can sort of pick up where you left off, or you can just sort of use a past campaign that you created. So let's select this template, and we're just going to create a test campaign just to see the visual editor and look at some of the features we have here. So here we go. This is the ActiveCampaign visual editor. As you'd expect, really nice and easy to use. Everything is sort of standard drag and drop, and it just works. A lot of the other email marketing tools we've looked at, they pretty much all have this sort of visual email designer now, but a lot of them are a bit janky, a little bit kind of just buggy in places. Whereas the ActiveCampaign one, I think, does quite a nice job of it. Just does kind of what you hope. So one thing I'll kind of point out with this is that initially everything is really simple, right? Like everything is sort of as you expect. You can sort of just point and type, drag things around. Really sort of nice. If this is your first time using email marketing software, you're going to have no issue using this. If you've used any kind of, if you've used Microsoft Word or any kind of CMS, this is essentially the same thing. But it's not limited either. So there are some pretty advanced things that you have available that are not immediately obvious that I'll kind of point out. So the first thing is personalization tags. So we can insert personalization tags. You can also create your own personalization tags. We'll touch on some variables in a second. We've got emojis, but what is a particularly nice feature is we can create conditional sections. So I believe it's, we might need to select the entire block. Here we go. So if you have, for example, a few different segments of users, instead of, let's say, like you've got people who have never purchased from you, people who've purchased once, people who have purchased 5 times, instead of creating 3 different emails, let's say you're sending out a Black Friday offer, instead of creating like 3 different emails for those different segments, you could have one email and then have conditional content. So we could say, if tag exists, which is like user has purchased, or downloads ebook, just because that one's I've created already. Then what that does is it creates a new block. And so you can create like different sections for different users. So now this whole section is only going to show to people who have downloaded an ebook. I can then duplicate that section and give this section a different condition. So we can say tag does not exist. So for people who haven't downloaded an ebook, we can send them this section. So nice little feature. It just keeps your kind of email campaigns a lot more organized, makes it a little bit easier to kind of manage and not need to have lots of different campaigns. And I think the reason why this is quite like a noteworthy feature is because it's adding personalization to your email. Any email marketing is essentially all about sending the right message to the right person at the right time. And the way in which you do that with email marketing is through personalization. So any feature like this that helps you improve the relevancy of your email content and make it more relevant to each individual receiving that email, the better your performance is going to be. And therefore, that's going to push up the performance, improve your ROI, and get you better results from the email marketing channel. So really powerful, but quite simple little feature there. If you are on an upgraded, like a higher plan, I believe you'll also have options for things like predictive content. So you can have ActiveCampaign sort of essentially run automated A/B tests for you with your content and help use machine learning to work out which content is going to perform best. It's very powerful. It means you don't have to sort of, run sort of manually set up lots of A/B tests. But as I say, I think that's only on their higher plans. So before we jump onto some of the features up here, just to kind of have a quick look at some of the blocks we have available. So a lot of these are pretty standard. We've got things like images, text, buttons, but there's a few things that are not standard that I think are really nice. So the first is video. So if you've ever tried to put a video in an email before, you will know how painful that can be. Really nice ActiveCampaign give you options for how to do that. We've got social images. Timer is a really nice one. So if you're running events like webinars, again, having had developers have to build this stuff for me manually in the past, it can be very, very painful. So the fact that ActiveCampaign offer this out the box for me is a really big win. You can also have your own kind of HTML blocks. So this just gives you a bit of flexibility if you've got things like iframes or widgets, anything that you want to embed directly. That's all possible and easy to do. You can also make sections like hidden on different devices. So if you didn't want to show like a big video or a big image on mobile devices because you were concerned that it might take up too much space, we can sort of hide the element on mobile, so it only displays. It has that little icon just to indicate that. Yeah, RSS, again, that's quite helpful if you just want to have a section to show kind of the latest articles you've written without needing to do that manually. Yeah, that's generally where I think I'll leave that from a campaign perspective. In terms of up here, we've got a few things. We've got revision history, so particularly helpful if you've got multiple people working on the email campaigns, you can kind of jump back and see what's been done. Undo and redo, again, very simple, but that will save your life on numerous occasions. If you do want to switch over to HTML and maybe make some custom CSS or make some custom changes, you can do that directly down here. And then we have a couple of testing options. So you can preview the email in different clients. How does it look in Outlook? How does it look in Gmail? So that's a nice feature. And you can also just test it directly. So you can enter any email here, run a test. And in my view, this is the best way to test email because you will pick up on like how it actually looks in your inbox. And I always find that I will find more issues with emails and pick up on more things testing it directly in my inbox rather than sort of testing it in situ in here. Yeah, that's pretty much all there. So what I'm going to do next is skip over to sending. So we get taken to a quick kind of summary where we can just check off all the information. Because this is a new account, we've got a few warnings here, which is just trying to kind of put us on the right side of the anti-spam laws. So things like making sure we've got our address in the emails and verified our domain. These obviously wouldn't show once you've done that. We've got a few options of things to that we can alter, and then we've got some options around reporting. So by default, we have open and read tracking, we have link tracking, but we don't have reply tracking. Now, the reason for that is if you turn on reply tracking, it will change the from address in your emails. So instead of emails coming from, say, partners@ventureharbor.com, the email will have to come from like, tracking 102.618@activecampaign.com. So it's a bit of a call that you need to make as to whether would you rather have the from, a nice kind of from email address, but not track replies, or is that important to you? In which case you'll need to use their email address. Google Analytics, this just adds UTM parameters so you can track clicks and interaction through GA. And then we've got a few options for sending. So we can schedule our emails, we can run a final last test, a few last previews, and helpfully ActiveCampaign also have a spam check. So this just detects, have you added too many links in your email? Are you using certain trigger words that might cause inboxes to email clients to sort of skip the inbox? So a nice little kind of final test before you schedule your email and send it. So yeah, this email goes straight into draft for now, but you could publish that and get that sent. I'm not going to do that because the emails we're using are just dummy data for now. So just kind of looking at some of the other options down here. So content, this is essentially an asset manager. So all the images you upload, all the videos, any assets will appear here. You can also use that in reverse. So instead of every time you go and build an email, having to kind of contact your designer and adding things one by one, you could upload your kind of entire image sort of assets and design files here, logos, all that sort of stuff. And then when you're creating email campaigns, you can sort of be a lot faster when creating it. So that's a nice kind of little feature. Templates, as I mentioned, so instead of using the ActiveCampaign built templates, you can get your designers or your team to kind of build your own templates here. ActiveCampaign do offer a free design service, which you can look into here. Message variables. This is a massively underrated feature that will save you quite a lot of time. So an example of this, essentially this is like a merge tag, but you can import your own sort of content here. So I'm going to create one for, let's call this like marketer signature. And we're going to give it the tag signature. So what this now means, I'm just going to put some content here saying, check out our latest thing. Let's say you've been using ActiveCampaign for a couple of years and you've created like 50 different email campaigns that are all in email automation sequences. So they're all being sent every single day. Your email marketing is essentially now an autopilot. But let's say you now want to go and change your email signature. Maybe you're running a webinar and you want to promote that webinar in all of those emails that are being sent out. Instead of going to each of those 50 emails and updating the signature manually in them, you could just, in each of those emails, just enter, put this tag, signature tag in, and this is going to pull this content in. So now, if you want to promote like a webinar or your latest offer, you can update it in one place, and it's going to change that in all 50 email campaigns rather than having to manually do it in all 50. So this is really, really helpful for anything where you want to kind of eliminate any sort of duplication of work and sort of save yourself a bit of time like that. Okay, so next up, we're going to take a look at automations in ActiveCampaign. So automations, I think, is probably the most impressive part of ActiveCampaign. It's the main reason, I think, from a feature perspective to use ActiveCampaign, because ActiveCampaign have probably the best automation builder. As I said at the beginning, they're one of the first to build visual automation, and ultimately, any email marketing tool you use will have list management and email campaign builders. There's not a lot, huge amount of differentiation in those features anymore. ActiveCampaign do them very well, but frankly, you could kind of get that from any tool. Automation is a bit different. I think automation done well makes a huge difference, and ActiveCampaign have done this brilliantly. So if we click create an automation, the first thing you'll notice is we have so many of these kind of pre-built recipes and templates that you can use to get up and going quickly. I believe some of these are kind of submitted by the community. You can also kind of on the internet or through consultants get sort of automation sequences that have been built by experts rather than sort of from the ActiveCampaign team, and you can import those yourselves. This also is quite a nice way if you're moving from one ActiveCampaign account to another, you can sort of bring your automations with you. But yeah, so we have lots of different sequences you can use to get up and running, all by kind of broken down by industry and language. But for this review, I'm just going to start from scratch, just so we kind of get a bit of a feel for sort of how to start from a blank slate. So the first thing you do with any automation sequence is you need a trigger. You need a kind of like, you know, what action means that users will kind of go into this automation sequence. So we've got a ton of options here. We'll just kind of talk through a couple of them. We've got all the standard things like when a contact subscribes to a list, or when they submit a form, or when they visit a web page. But we've also got some kind of slightly more interesting ones. So things like dismisses a site message, or when a goal is achieved, when they abandon the cart. So if you're running an e-commerce site, we've got a few e-commerce specific triggers here, which again, it's just going to save you a lot of time. You'll be able to kind of integrate Shopify or WooCommerce, whatever shopping cart you're using. And then instead of having to do lots of back-end development to connect to your platforms, you just have these kind of one-click options, which is really, really nice and time-saving. We also then have lots of CRM options. So if you're using ActiveCampaign CRM or things like lead scoring, we can say when a deal enters a pipeline or a deal goes from being a prospect to a customer, we can use those as triggers to start our automation sequence. So for now, I'm just going to keep it really nice and simple and say when a user enters my prospect list, we're going to start this automation. So now we have our sending options and our conditions. So we'll just kind of look at some of the options first, and then we'll go ahead and start building an automation sequence. So we've got 6 different options in terms of what we can send users. So we can send them an email, pretty self-explanatory. We can send a site message. And this is if you're using the little kind of like chatbot thing, which we'll look at in a moment. We've got notification emails. So these are primarily kind of internal notifications. We have transactional emails. So recently, a couple of months ago, ActiveCampaign acquired Postmark. And so Postmark is primarily a transactional email service. So if you need to send things like password resets or order confirmations, that's a bit more kind of geared to Postmark. So you can send those. And then we have one-to-one emails. So this kind of connects directly with your email account and looks like a personal email account, personal email. And then finally, we have SMS. So you need to upgrade to a Plus plan to be able to send these, but we can trigger. So we've got kind of a pretty decent sort of omni-channel array of ways of communicating with users. But yeah, we're going to stick with email for the purpose of this review. And then in terms of conditions and workflows, I think ActiveCampaign do a really kind of nice job of this. So we've got within each of these, we'll look at a few of them, but there's a lot of flexibility in how you use any of these. So we've got waits, we've got if and else conditions. We can do split testing, which is probably one of my favorite features inside the whole of ActiveCampaign. I'll show you why in a second. We have go-to jumps. We can trigger goals. So this is really, really valuable for reporting and attribution. And then we can also do some sort of actions to move contacts to different automations, move them out of the current automation, and do some sort of kind of keep our automations nice and clean. We also have webhooks, and we can do some math. So updating any contact information, we can do that. I've actually never used this in a while, but kind of interesting. And then, yeah, lots of kind of contact information. We have deal information, so we can update deals. ActiveCampaign have a couple of really, really nice native integrations. So Salesforce, Shopify, we've got a few others here. Google Sheets, I know, is quite a decent integration. So you can sort of natively trigger actions in those apps from ActiveCampaign. So to begin with, I'm just going to create a pretty basic automation, but just kind of show you some of the options that we have available. So first, I'm going to say arbitrarily, we're going to wait until, what shall we say? The current day of the week is Monday. So let's add a wait. And then I'm going to send users an email, but I want to run a test. So I want to know, I'm going to test 300 contacts, and when I create this email, I want to go ahead with the one that has the highest open rate. So split until 300 contacts have been split. Actually, yeah, so we're going to do it based on open rate. Any campaign or email. Once I'd created this, I would probably select the 2 emails that I'm going to test, but for now, I'm just going to do any campaign or email. And we're going to apply. So this is now created an A/B test. I can create 2 different emails. So this then just opens up the email visual builder that we were on earlier, so you can kind of create your emails. For now, I'm just going to kind of whiz through this just so we can kind of move on to the next bit. So that's fine. I'm not going to create another one here, but you could create obviously another email here and then test it. What's also quite nice about how ActiveCampaign do split testing is traditionally you can, like almost every tool, you can run split tests at a single email level, but very few tools do a good job of allowing you to split test entire paths. So with ActiveCampaign, you could, for example, test, does sending the user 3 emails over a 7-day period convert better than sending just 1 email? So this split action, it's a pretty simple feature. It's not offered by many email marketing tools out there, but it's really powerful. And what's also really nice about it is you could create a big kind of email marketing automation sequence, set up all these split tests, and essentially let your automation sequence just run over the next year, and knowing full well that there's lots of A/B tests happening, and when you come back to sort of review your test, you can see all the winners, and yeah, it's sort of like your email marketing is automatically optimizing itself while you focus on other things. So we then have, if I just sort of create a few other options, let's do some sort of CRM stuff. So we might want to, we don't have a pipeline set up, so we can't do that for now, but you kind of get the gist. Like we can add lots of different options. I'll add a jump, or let's do a goal. So we can add, okay, great. Okay, so I need to create a goal to do that. So we could say, let's fire a goal when a user enters this list, and then we can add a jump. So, I mean, this email sequence that I've built here kind of makes no sense really. I'm really just kind of playing around more with the user interface just to sort of show some of the options that we've got. But as you can see, it's super easy to use, and you can kind of just follow it from top to bottom to sort of understand what's going on with the automation flow. So yeah, just to kind of, I guess, work down the side, we've kind of covered off the sending options. We've looked at some of the different conditions you can use. We've looked at the different kind of CRM and contact things. Mentioned about Salesforce. We also have lots of different third-party apps that you can sort of call from here. So just as an example, If someone converts, you might want to sort of, maybe for your reporting, connect Google Sheets. So you add a row into Google Sheets and maybe add that to your reporting software. The options are pretty endless, but you get the gist that this is more than just sort of directly sending emails. You can really kind of trigger lots of different actions directly from this view. So a few other things I'll point out before we move over to deals. You can see at any given point all of the contacts that are going through your automation sequence, and you can see, for example, did Mike click this link? Did he go down path A? Did he open this email but not click a link? All that information you can see. When you click Go Contacts, you can then sort of like almost visualize like the path that every user has taken through these sequences. So that's quite a nice feature. We can also make automation sequences active, inactive, so you can sort of build them and being confident that they don't go live until you're ready for them to. So that's pretty much where I'm going to leave it for now from automations, and we'll hop on over to the ActiveCampaign CRM. So one thing I'll just kind of point out about ActiveCampaign I really love is that even though ActiveCampaign started almost 20 years ago in 2003, they are constantly releasing new features, constantly improving. And you might sort of expect this of any software company, but frankly, a lot of the other email marketing tools out there that are of a similar age to ActiveCampaign, they sort of are almost frozen in time, and they stopped innovating, they stopped releasing new features, and they kind of have gradually become less competitive. Whereas ActiveCampaign, I would say, has over time become more innovative, they're still constantly releasing new functionality. And almost every time I log into ActiveCampaign, it's like, okay, there's now a new feature being added. So it's, I think, part of their, like, why, I think ActiveCampaign is such a good option is they're never done. They're always improving. So this is the ActiveCampaign CRM. I did mention at the start of this video that one of the very few cons with ActiveCampaign is that the CRM is not fantastic. It has improved. They have definitely made they've definitely made a lot of improvements to this, but it's pretty simple. I wouldn't feel comfortable if I was running a large sales-based company with, say, like 5 to 10 salespeople. I don't think I would feel totally comfortable solely using ActiveCampaign. I would probably suggest still using ActiveCampaign for marketing automation email, but perhaps using something like Salesforce for the CRM or HubSpot. However, it's not bad. If you're running, for example, an agency, or you have maybe 50 leads at any given point, ActiveCampaign will work. The CRM is not it's not as I say bad. It's just sorry, let me just add something here. It's just not the best option out there. So as you can see, we have this kind of Kanban style approach where any deal can sort of be in any sort of deal stage at any one point. You can then sort of drag them to lost or won. And a nice little feature is that when you have multiple deals in a section, you can see how many deals and sort of the total value of all the deals in that section. We can click through to a deal and see all the information about it. And so if you're working with multiple salespeople, multiple people on the team, you can see every email that everyone on your team has sent them, also all the activity that the contacts in that deal have made, all the automation sequences they've gone through. So it's relatively good. It's just not Salesforce. So if you're a large company, you might want to use something like that. But as I say, for a small company, it's definitely not a bad option. So just before we move on from deals, I will just sort of show the contact side of that view. So if we just, who did I add? So Amber, test 3. So we go into the contact, test number 3. Here we go, Amber. So now that we've associated a deal with this contact, you can now see down the right-hand side here all the information that this contact has been added to a deal, and then any sort of changes to that deal you would see reflected here. So yeah, just kind of nice to sort of see all in one place, all the information. And up here we can see that there's now a deal associated with this contact, and then you can click over and then get the deal view as well. So that's everything from a deals perspective. We'll now have a look at conversations. So we need to start a 14-day trial for this. So hopefully this isn't going to ask me for a credit card. No, it looks so far so good. So we've got a few options here. We can do who's going to use this. So essentially this is going to give us like a little like chatbot kind of thing like this, where you'll be able to talk directly to users directly from your website. So we've got a few options to customize it. I'm not going to sort of spend too much time on this for now, but you can see over here we've got like a preview of how this is going to look. I'm just going to, let's do that for now. Enter your custom logo, and then similar to most tools like this, it's just a case of copy and pasting the code snippet onto your website, or we've got a WordPress plugin that you can use here. So I'm not actually going to sort of deploy this live, but I just want to kind of show some of the options that we have available. So if we launch conversations, you'll then see any kind of messages that people send through your conversations thing will appear here. And so it's kind of, you know, you can use it either as like a support desk or for converting leads directly on your website. You will also have noticed, like when we were building the automation sequences, there was the ability to trigger site messages. So if we just go back here, we can see, for example, we've got this option where we can send a site message. So if I just declare a test one, we can, yeah. So we can send messages here. We can add in data attributes. So we can sort of, if we know the user's name, we can sort of mention things to them. So yeah, nice and straightforward. So that's pretty much all for conversations. So we'll take a look at website, which is looking at things like the forms. Let me just pull that out. So ActiveCampaign forms are okay. They're definitely not sort of, you know, they're not the most beautiful forms. They are no type form, but they do the job. And in terms of sort of being able to add, you know, subscribers to your list from your website, they certainly do a decent enough job. They're also kind of pretty easy to put together. I don't think with ActiveCampaign you're able to do progressive profiling, which is where you can ask different questions to people based on, you know, if someone's already given you their email address, like being able to ask them different questions. But that's not the end of the world. What you can do, which is quite nice, is off the back of someone submitting a form, you can automatically enter them into an automation sequence and then trigger information, trigger sort of different emails to them off the back of it. And we do have some options here, like being able to, once they submit, you can either just show them a thank you message or you can send them to a URL. So nothing too out of the ordinary. We've used ActiveCampaign forms quite a lot in the past. They're pretty lightweight and very easy to customize, very easy to kind of play around with the API if you wish. But yeah, it's pretty much sort of what you would hope and expect for pages. So yeah, like we can create landing pages directly from ActiveCampaign and sort of insert your subscriber forms directly inside them. So I'll just kind of show you briefly what that looks like. So here we've got our template gallery of all different landing pages. They're pretty nice. So we've got quite a good variety, as with the email templates. And the visual kind of editor is very, very similar to the email campaign visual editor. So all kind of drag and drop, very straightforward, very sort of easy to sort of, yeah, easy to use anything. But yeah, the only things I will sort of flag here, I think worth mentioning, is we've got options for PayPal. We've got the countdown timer again, which is quite nice. And so yeah, you can have sort of buy it now buttons directly within your landing pages. Web personalization. So I have to admit, the web personalization, I have not used this feature before. This is a relatively new one, I think, and maybe just as well, as it doesn't seem to be loading here. So I'm going to shift over to some of the other options we've got. So site messages, we saw that in automation, where we created the site message that sort of triggered a message to users. These are sort of more configuration options, so we can sort of track. If you enter a tracking code onto your website, you can then sort of do things like, if a user visits the pricing page, you can trigger an automation sequence to them. You can also use that to alter things like the lead score. But you do need to, in order to be able to use those features, you need to kind of install this tracking code and set this up. You can also do event tracking. So if you are running an app, for example, and you want to send certain events, like we do this, for example, for a lot of our apps, where if people visit certain pages or they use certain features, we might send events into ActiveCampaign. So we can say, if a user's never used this feature or they have, we might want to send them emails to invite them to try it. So that leaves us now with reporting. So I'm actually going to switch over to a live account because a lot of the reporting, as you'll see here, on this account, because we don't have any campaigns that have been sent out, we don't have much information in this new account. There's not a lot to see here. So I'm going to shift over to a live account so we can have a look at some of these reports. So the final feature that I want to take a bit of a look at in ActiveCampaign is the reporting functionality. So I mentioned at the start of this video that the ActiveCampaign, historically, reporting hasn't been their strongest point. This has improved a huge amount over the years. And the thing that has made all the difference is ActiveCampaign starting to take a bit more, pay a bit more attention to attribution and conversion data. So if we go back 4 or 5 years ago, a lot of ActiveCampaign's reporting was just basic email marketing reports. So open rates, click-through rates, unsubscribe rates, all the standard stuff. And that's fine if you're running email marketing in a very sort of, isolated, almost kind of tunnel vision way. But really the kind of questions that we need to ask ourselves as marketers is, how is our email marketing affecting the business's bottom line? How are we influencing revenue? And how is this sort of working overall as a channel in context with other channels? So ActiveCampaign, to be completely honest, their reporting is not the best out there. I would say HubSpot do have an edge from a reporting perspective, but the reporting is not bad. It's not, I would sort of argue that almost any question that you have about your email marketing, you will be able to answer within ActiveCampaign. It's just not the most beautiful. It's not the most elegant, it's just not sort of a huge strength of theirs. So I'm not going to go through all of the reports available, but I just kind of want to sort of show you a few things, sort of the kind of thing that you'll be able to report on. So as you can see, if I expand all these, you can get an idea of all the different reports that we have available. We've got them broken down by the various different sections of ActiveCampaign. So just a few that I would like to highlight. So the first one is goal overview. So this, I think, is where ActiveCampaign have made the biggest improvement over the years with their automation, is that now we can look at how automation sequences are working in terms of how well do they achieve your goals. So if you create a goal, you remember when we were creating the automation sequence, you can add a goal within the sequence. You can trigger, when a user gets here, that means that this user has met the goal of the sequence. So you then get a report where you can see what percentage of people that enter that automation sequence actually complete that goal, and how long on average does it take them. This is a really helpful metric because you can then start to come up with ideas for like, well, how can we get this from 2.8 weeks down to 2 weeks or 1 week? Could we perhaps run a split test where we send more emails in a shorter period of time? Or we perhaps look at our best performing emails and prioritize a few that are performing really well in week 2, week 3, and bring them earlier. So really nice metric to kind of prompt some ideas and give a nice target to improve. So we've got all the sort of standard like overall campaign reports where we can look at open rates, click-through rates, and see everything that's been sent. We can get some sort of pretty helpful information on things like what clients are most popular. We can see trends for like when our emails are getting the highest open or click-through rates by day of the week, by time. We haven't used predictive content on this account, but if you have used predictive content, which is where ActiveCampaign create lots of variants for you and will kind of work out which ones perform best, you'll get some data here to see how those variants are performing. And then, so on this account, we don't have conversations running, so we don't have much data here. Similarly with deals, we haven't used the deal functionality too much recently, but you would get information on what the conversion rates are between different steps of your funnel, how much you're kind of converting, what the value of leads are. You'll be able to see sort of like all the different deals and breakdowns of your funnel here. So, and we have deal forecasts, which pretty helpful if you have deals in your pipeline that are going to convert and you want to kind of see like what's the expected conversion value in the coming months or years ahead. So as you can sort of see from this, there's pretty much everything you would need to be able to kind of prove what's working and not working. As I say, we don't have the perfect setup in this account to sort of see a lot of this information, which I think is arguably some of the most impressive stuff that ActiveCampaign is doing at the moment. But it is there. I wanted to kind of highlight it, even though we've not set it up here, because I know this is going to be quite important to a lot of users. But in general, this is not the most impressive reporting section. I think ActiveCampaign there's still a lot that they could and should be doing to make the reporting functionality a bit better, but it's a hell of a lot better than it was a couple of years ago. And I am really kind of clutching at straws to now kind of call this a con, because it's still a lot better than many of the other email marketing tools that we've reviewed. So that's kind of all that I wanted to sort of show in terms of the ActiveCampaign platform. There is one last thing that I wanted to just highlight, because it's such a nice thing that ActiveCampaign do that I haven't seen replicated elsewhere, which is that ActiveCampaign offer every single user 22 guarantees. So this is part of their customer success commitment. And to be honest, I've contacted ActiveCampaign support probably maybe 5 times, which is not bad given we've been a user for probably about 7-8 years now. And every single time their customer support is incredible, but we don't use it that much because the platform is really quite good. But even so, they offer this really nice 22-point guarantee. I would recommend having a read of this. There's a lot of really good stuff in here, but things like free migration, free implementation, onboarding is all free, training is free. They offer these kind of university kind of events that you can go to. They put a lot of effort into community, so you get invited to kind of Slack groups and various different sort of groups where you can learn how to use ActiveCampaign and get lots out of it. As we saw when we looked at automation, there's so many kind of pre-built templates and automation recipes, and it's not just the ones you see in the platform. There's also kind of recipes that are created by the community and shared among the community. From a security and trust perspective, ActiveCampaign are phenomenal. I think they're one of only maybe 2 or 3 email marketing tools in our list that is HIPAA compliant. Now, that's, if you're not a healthcare company, that's irrelevant. But to get HIPAA compliance is an insane number of hurdles that you have to jump through, and ActiveCampaign are one of the very few that have managed to do that, and also chosen to do that. They also have lots of the like SOC compliance and ISO compliance, I believe. Deliverability, again, is great. From our own data, we've seen well above 99% deliverability on emails. So yeah, this is all pretty impressive stuff, and I'd recommend having a read of this. But yeah, that's where I think I'm going to leave that for now. If you have any questions about ActiveCampaign, as I say, we've been using ActiveCampaign since sort of 2016, 2017. We started reviewing them in 2012. So if you have any questions whatsoever, or any experiences that you'd like to share, please drop them in the comments below. I would love to kind of hear how you're finding it, how you're using it, and yeah, happy to answer any questions that I can. And finally, if you are considering using ActiveCampaign, I will drop a link in the description below. Sometimes we're able to kind of get a special deal for people that we refer to ActiveCampaign. So if that's true, then you might be able to get a discount or some free extra months on that. Otherwise, it helps to support us creating this content, running our annual review, and we really appreciate using that. We do receive a commission from ActiveCampaign, so just to be fully transparent, but that doesn't affect any of the reviews or any of the editorial process that we go through. Yeah, I hope that has been useful, and as I say, any questions, let us know. Cheers.